part 2. So we covered, ow, my back just spasmed. We covered placement on the vehicle, ground type antennas, an antenna that needs to be grounded. We covered the type of antennas versus your location, all right, where you're at, your geographical area. All right, how you like that? Geographical. Whoa. And I'm just a dude. Oh, my back. Bad day today. Had 2 or 3 days of rain. It's killing me. So we covered the type of antenna: quarter wave, half wave, 3/4 wave, full wave. Again, we're still talking cars, vehicles. We talked about placements and groundings. Now we talked about height of antenna, length of wire. We got to get into some of that. When it comes to 11 meter CB, you don't want to just take a wire, run it in your car, and this happens a lot. They'll buy a kit antenna, meaning, like for instance, a K40 or a Wilson, an antenna that comes complete, coax and everything. They hook it up in their vehicle and they run it to the radio. You know, they bury it all, they run it all, and they end up with 3 or 4 extra feet. Or if they're real fanatics, they got an extra 18 inches or an extra foot, and they don't want that extra wire hanging around, so they're going to cut it off and resolder it and put it right close to the radio. That doesn't work in CB. We need to keep it in 3-foot intervals. In other words, if we're going to cut, we got to cut 3 feet. We don't want to run 3 feet of wire from a radio to an antenna. That's not going to give you enough for anything to happen. There's a certain amount of coax that you do need. Personally, I would never run less than 12 feet. You can get away with 9, but I wouldn't run less than 12. 12, all right, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. You follow me here? It's not like in the house where you're running 25, 50, 75, 100. It's a little bit different when you get in a car. 2 different animals. So that's why when you see coax, you know, in the stores, you're going to see 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and so on. That's kind of how it works. So you want to be able to have that type of a cut. So you want to measure your wire, if you want, before you put it in. If you think you're going to cut it, measure it out. Because if you can't take off enough to where you're going to have an even, well, an uneven amount at this point, you know, 9, 12, 15 feet left, and you're going to have 17 feet or 13 feet, well, then you don't cut the wire. You know, I mean, just don't do it. You take that extra wire, and you don't want to roll it up in a tight little roll and just hide it someplace. You want to zigzag it back and forth and as far apart as possible. You know, we don't want to do like a little zigzag this big, you know, just zigzag, zigzag, and then wire tie it. We want to stretch that zigzag out as much as possible. If we can't zigzag it, well, then just start tucking it up someplace to hide it. We don't want this to happen because that's going to change the SWR. So that's another thing. So don't cut your wire unless you're cutting it in the intervals of 3 feet. And don't coil your wire up. And if zigzag it, but make it a big zigzag. Now, if you haven't got enough to do yourself with like a 24-inch zigzag and you got like, you know, 4 feet, well, just find a place to start tucking it up and wire tying it up out of the way someplace. I mean, that's all there is to it. Between the front of the car and the back of the car, you should be able to hide 3 or 4 feet of wire without coiling it, you know? So make it work. Yeah? And you're going to need a little bit extra in case you ever have to take the radio out anyway. So, you know, I mean, you don't want it that tight. So, we covered all that. Now, let me show you parts of a mount so you'll have an idea what I'm talking about.